Hi, this is Tom and welcome to this week's Thrive in 5. This week we're going to talk about some critical cost metrics. These are critical in your marketing because you got to know what you're spending, and yet a lot of times when I talk to people and I do consulting work with them, what I discover is we don't know these numbers. And when you know these numbers, you know how to actually spend effectively in your marketing, but you've got to have a baseline to work from. So let's look through some of the numbers that are really critical, at least from a cost perspective in your marketing. And this all relates back to a episode I did in Thrive in 5 in terms of understanding your client acquisition process. So if you understand that we go from prospect to lead to opportunity to client, a prospect is a list. They're somebody you don't have a pre-existing relationship with. You're just beginning to market to them. A lead is someone who's raised their hand and said, I'm interested in what you're talking about, not necessarily looking for a proposal or a quote yet. An opportunity is someone who actually decides, yes, I want a proposal and I need help. And then they become a client. But it's important to know the metrics that get you from one stage to the next. So in this case, we're going to talk about three major metrics that you need to figure out in your marketing. The first one is your cost per lead. How much does it cost me to get a lead? Now, how that works, and just for an example, let's say you've got a prospect list and you bought a list from a list broker for $250. Let's just, for example, say that. And then you send out a direct mail piece to 1,000 people and it costs you $750 to send that list out. So you've got a cost of $1,000 there that you've invested to actually do this campaign to a prospect list, just to a list. That $1,000 cost now, if you get a response, and let's assume that you get 100 people out of that 1,000 respond, your cost per lead is going to end up being $10. So your $10 cost per lead. It's important to know that. Now, of those leads, let's suggest in this particular campaign, you're inviting them to a special webinar or a training seminar. So you get 100 people to respond to your campaign, and that in turn leads them into this webinar. So 100 of those people show up at a webinar. Within that webinar, let's assume that only 10 of these people, based on what they learned and what you taught them, decide that they want to learn more from you and they actually are interested in the service you have to offer, so they ask you for a proposal. They ask for help. Now what you've got to figure out is, okay, what is my cost per opportunity? An opportunity is someone who says, I need your help. And that cost per opportunity now becomes essentially $100 per opportunity. Now, what's important about that is you now know what it costs you to get someone to the stage where you're giving them a proposal. So what's it cost me to get somebody to say, I'm interested in even talking to you? What's it cost you to get a person to actually say they want a proposal from you? And then based on that, let's assume you've only got one client out of that. You end up having $1,000 cost for that sale in this particular structure. So it's really important that you understand those numbers. You know how much it costs you to get somebody in the door, how much it costs you to actually get a proposal to them, and then how much it costs you to get that sale, because those numbers start to become the foundation with which you measure the relative success of your campaigns. So it's important when you look at these metrics and you start measuring them, that you start by measuring campaigns. In many cases, when people start trying to measure this stuff, they don't actually know the overall cost, but you can start by measuring a campaign, a specific thing you do. Does it return something back to you? Can you move someone through the process of acquisition? And by that, understand the cost per campaign. Then you can actually start to expand into measure by strategy. And a strategy could be you start measuring this particular cost flow based on the strategy. And that could be your web marketing could have a cost per acquisition. Your direct mail could have a cost per acquisition. Your outreach in terms of getting involved in trade shows, that could be a strategy, and you know your numbers there. And finally, you overall measure and you get to know on average what are my costs. And if you understand that stuff, you've got good results and success going forward. You now have the knowledge. Now go do something with it. We'll talk to you next week.